anonymous as we can.
That's a very good point. So now we're recording and we'll take not everything from the beginning, but we'll start here. So for you guys listening in on later, welcome to the first AI crash course. We're going to jump back into the program. But the real need for Sweden, because I've heard some people talk about that, the status of AI and applied AI already during the mingle. And the reason AI Sweden exists now is that a couple of years ago, there was some researchers both within industry, so industrial researchers, and academic researchers looking at the status of AI in Sweden and came up with, this is not that good. This is not where we should be. This is not where we're supposed to be because we haven't had a focus on it. So basically they raised the flag saying that we need an initiative, we need things to start happen. And that's what AI Sweden comes from. So we started at Lindholmen Science Park, who got the initiative from Vinnova, but now we're all over Sweden, and we know we need to do these types of activities all over Sweden because we need to activate all Sweden. So we're based in Luleå and Umeå up in the north, in Stockholm, in Örebro, in Linköping, in Gothenburg, in Malmö, Lund, and a lot of we're growing. It feels like we're growing every month. So when I started, we were 3 people, and now we're 35, and that was approximately 1.5 years ago. So things are happening, and also things are happening in Sweden, and we will go through some of those things. We're a national center for applied AI. We're a neutral non-profit organization. So that's also something we want to help you guys here, or tell you guys here, that we are here to help you. We are here to support your journey within AI. So please feel free to use us. Please feel free to reach out to us when it comes to training and learning, or finding out about research projects, or just having general questions. Reach out to us here. This is completely new, this office, and it's meant to be filled with people that are curious about AI, that want to accelerate applied AI. So please feel free to reach out to us. But to get to know each other a bit, we thought that we need to do a check-in. You guys also, to build a strong community, you guys need to figure out who you are and who's in this community already. So we're going to divide the online session in breakout rooms, where you will go through your name, why do you have an interest in AI, the expectations on this course, what do you want to happen after this course, because this is 5 training activities or 5 training events where we can meet in person or online. And then we also want to do one thing that Raquel has taught me. I've changed the pictures now, Raquel, just so you know, but just to find out more about you as a person. So what fictional character are you? What type of superhero are you, either in your everyday life or in your workplace or at home? I can start with myself before I divide everyone into breakout rooms. And in the physical room here, I recommend that we're about 5 people in each group. So just go together, or 6 people maybe. This even might be better, but I'll let you figure that out. So to start with me, my name is Peter Kurzwelly. I come from the startup sector. So my interest has been in AI for a long time. I've been working with AI startups for especially during the last 6 years, but then based in Gothenburg. My reason to why I'm doing this is that I'm really future curious. I think more about the future than the past, which kind of upsets my family members. And my expectations on this course is that I know that we need to accelerate applied AI, both in business and in public sector, but I also know that we need more women in the field of AI. And we've been discussing this, Sofie, and I think we're going to make it clear, because I see so many curious individuals here. But coming from the startup sector and from the private sector, I also see a need for more board members having knowledge and competence within the field of AI. So this is a perfect opportunity to get more women into the boardroom, to get more people having the type of skills that are really, really demanded in the boardrooms. Because frankly, the old guys in the boardroom right now know nothing about AI, and they're not doing their job diving into this area. So that's my goal, to get a line of women. Just when we get questions like, do we know anyone having the competences? Yes, I have these 10. Ask them. They can do presentations. They can come out and inspire you to start acting in this field. So that is really my why. And my expectations is to have curious individuals that want to get to know each other, want to. Sandra, I'm just going to mute you. Engage in the community. So that's really use us, as I said. And my characters are always these 3. It's Peter Milak from, not really a superhero, kind of like the really bad superhero. He's just very friendly and don't do much. Then I have Phil Dunphy, who's my alter ego at home, and Carrie Bradshaw. So doing these types of Myers-Briggs tests, the personality traits I get is always these 3, and I don't really know what that says about me, but I'll let you figure that out. So, and the most amazing things that can happen to a human being will happen to you if you just lower your expectations. So that is really the anti-quote I want to use here. Have high expectations on us and what we can do here, because I know that we can do really good things together if we dive into this together. So I want you to start here. Going into teams of 5 or 6, dive into these questions. You can spread out. We have about 10 minutes on this exercise so that you get to know each other. Have some more coffee, or I'll fill up the water, and we'll start again here in just 5 to 10 minutes. And I'm going to break you guys up in breakout rooms.
Perfect. Thanks, Peter.
Go somewhere else. Hey, hello.
Hey. Can you mute the AI Sweden room as well? Or maybe that's the main room.
Mm.
day, but for the other ones, I haven't seen anything. I think it's for a couple of weeks. I'm not going to guess now how many, but I know this is not just like a week or two. I think it's for more weeks.
Know about you in order to look project. So it gets like their age, how old they are, everything, and like but here like you just get the information of what is already happening.
The room so it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We will do more of that, so it's so nice to see the energy flowing inside the room. So what did you find out about each other? Do you have any examples, suggestions? Most common superhero? Pippi Longstreet? Anyone else? Sofie, what did you find out online?
We did have Pippi Longstrump as a superhero. I think she very much is a superhero.
Yeah.
I don't think we picked anyone from the picture, but the overall feel is that everyone is very excited, but maybe a little bit nervous, but are hoping to gain control of the field of AI. So I think a lot of positive energy.
That's good. I also want to take the opportunity to
mute everyone who's online, maybe. Thanks.
Yeah. Everyone. Oh, it's all to unmute themselves. Let's see if we can.
Or if everyone else, that's fine also.
There we go. But I would like to take this opportunity to welcome Raquel also to introduce yourself. So you have to unmute yourself.
Hi, Peter.
Hi. I just wanted you to introduce yourself to the group. Now you've done, what character did you choose?
I actually choose the blue one. I don't know the name. And it's really because well, maybe I should introduce myself before I enter why I chose the character. Yeah, so my name is Raquel Sanchez, and I'm responsible for training and learning at AI Sweden. And I work really close with Peter, a great partner in this quest. If I should answer the first question, why do I have an interest in AI? I mean, I was introduced to this subject of AI 3 years ago, and it was one of the most scariest subjects that I had ever encountered in my professional life as a learning program manager at the Volvo Group. So of course I accepted the task just because it was so scary. And I'm very, very happy that I did that, because it has opened so many doors for me and so many meetings with interesting people, and I'm learning every day. And the expectation for this course is really to give everyone attending the tools to enter the dialogue around AI. I just want to take AI from the, technique side of, or the engineering side of it, or the data science side of it, to the actual field where we are going to use AI. I mean, there's so many possibilities and fields of application, and it doesn't need to be all technical questions that we need to solve. So that's really what I am expecting with this course, is just to be able to give everyone that tool. And I chose the blue one, and it is because I need to be able to transform myself a little bit in the meetings that I have with all of these different people. I meet data scientists, I meet business people. So I really need to be able to speak with these different people with different kind of roles and different kind of perspectives. So I think then that is also one of my superpowers. Yeah.
Yeah, I concur. I think you're really good at that. So thank you, Raquel. We will meet you during all of these sessions, and hopefully you will be here in person next time. To really go into what this course is about, because when we had our train the trainer session last week, because one thing we want to do is to scale this type of activities globally, but we also want to scale them through Sweden, all over Sweden, giving more people the chance to go these courses. Because one thing that since we started AI Sweden, or AI Innovation Sweden as we were previously called, we figure out one thing, that the field of AI is no longer really a technical issue. It's not a technical challenge. Those technical problems, we will go into those. They are really hard. Some of them are very, very hard. But one thing that's even harder is to change people. It's to change managers, to change people's insights or vision or view about AI and using technology. So this is a quote from a book I will send to you all, The Essential AI Handbook for Leaders. It's done by Peltarium. And this is an old quote, but it's from Marcus Wallenberg, and it really emphasizes what we want to do here. We want to move people so that we can go into transformation with a positive but still conscious mindset, so that we make the right decisions based on the right data, listening to the right people, listening to the experts rather than the noisy ones, because it's all about leaders. And you being here, you spending the free time you have on a Wednesday night. Yeah, you see, on a Wednesday night will hopefully make you into leaders. Maybe it's in your companies, but it's also amongst your friends, amongst your families, with your partner, influencing people. Because we really need, in these days, we need good, conscious, data-driven leaders. So this is something I want to highlight all over the course. Really take this opportunity to start discussing this with your friends and colleagues and at home. So we will go into the course, the AI crash course. What will you do? Because a lot of you are already working within the field of AI. So you might go through the first sessions feeling that, okay, this is really the fundamentals. But because there is such a difference in the level of competence, we know we need to start somewhere. And then the elements of AI or fundamentals of AI is a really good way to start. So during the course, we will use elements of AI. So if you haven't signed up yet, please do. Please start taking the course. It's 6 chapters. We will go through them all during this course, or we will not go through them, but we will use some material and talk about the topics mentioned in those chapters. It's a free online course. It's developed by the University of Helsinki and Reactor. From the beginning in Sweden, we were a part of it, taking it to Sweden, and that's why it says AI Innovation Sweden, which was our old name. And you can also get university credits. For the ones that finishes the course, you could apply for 2 university credits at Linköping University. And I should confess this, that's my first 2 university credits in the field of AI in machine learning. I'm from the startup sector. I'm a business developer or entrepreneur from the beginning. But hopefully I can be a part of the conversation that you experts have as well. We have Daniel here, which is or somewhere, co-director of our scientific vision and head of AI at RISE. And somewhat we can keep up with him in the dialogue. So hopefully I can do that with you guys as well. So what we will do.
Can I interrupt? Yes. How do I reach elements of AI? How do I sign up?
Yeah, good. I think that's the next one. So yeah, you will get the link. So you will get the presentation and the regular questions. You will get the presentation, this presentation afterwards, both the recording now and the presentation in PowerPoint or PDF. We will send you the links, but it's elementsofai.com. You sign up just with your email and you go through the course. We have they say the course will take about 30 hours, somewhere 25 to 30 hours to finish. We have some people that has done it on 6 or 7. We don't recommend that, Raquel, do we? We want people to learn over a period of time so that things really fall in place. And that's why we're having this kind of schedule during the workshops. So we will go through each chapter either before or after the workshops. That's fine. But if you do the chapters before, if you read through the chapters before, you will come more prepared and can be a part of the conversation, because we will have experts here presenting. So starting today, we will go through what is AI, what's the definition of AI, and why do we think it's such a transformative technology right now? Why are things happening right now? Then during the second session, we will go into real world AI, the applications of AI, where it's being used and how it's being used, so that you can be more self-aware of the services you use, and just also looking into, okay, at my workplace or the things I do every day, what could I do? When could I use AI? What should we develop here? What applications do we have here? What could remove my routine tasks and make me be more creative or create more value for the organization or for myself? And then we will go into machine learning and neural networks together with some academic experts. We will talk about the future of AI. So we're at the point right now, but a lot of those are talking about artificial general intelligence. That conversation has kind of blew up again after some progress at DeepMind. So we'll go into that. And then we will finish everything off with a summary session, or where you guys get to meet. We will hopefully in December, we can have more people, hopefully, we'll see, talking about, okay, we started at a point where we had one view of AI. Has that view changed? And what does that mean? And how can we continue this deep dive into AI? And this is one of my favorite things I've learned since Raquel came into my life. It's the difference between learning and training. It's about a 70-20-10 method, but it's really that learning should and always should be continuously. It should go on like the main thing I think for Almedalen and all of the political discussions has been lifelong learning for the last 5 years, and no one really says what does that mean, but it's to continuously learn new things all of the time. So learning, and that's why you shouldn't rush through the course, but keep a pace that you feel, okay, now I get it, now things fall in place, because learning happens all of the time, but then training is an activity, and that's why we have 5 sessions. So we have 5 training sessions, and starting today, you've already started, but starting today, now you go into the learning phase of AI. So you will start thinking AI, dreaming AI, waking up in the middle of the night, thinking about, okay, how can I adjust my bed with machine learning so that I fall asleep better? So a lot of those things will happen. And then we have the learning playlist. So elementsofai.com is where you register. It's super simple. You just register with your email, but there's a lot of great other sources dependent on what makes you curious, what interests you. So DeepMind, I just found out about this podcast a couple of weeks ago, and DeepMind, they have a really good podcast that goes into their research, what they're doing, how far from artificial general intelligence are they. And then we have AI for Everyone. That's one of Coursera's highest rated courses. It's made from deep learning AI, or Andrew Ng, who founded Coursera. It's a really good course. And if you want to go into a deeper dive into machine learning, they also have a fantastic free course. The same thing there, deeplearning.ai at Coursera. And then we actually have some Swedish initiatives here also the business implications of AI, because we know that we can't only educate data scientists or data engineers. We also really need to educate business people. We need to educate lawyers. We need to educate moms and dads and siblings and friends. So if you have an interest about AI, EIT made a course together with KTH actually, and it's free. Also kind of like a Corona project from EIT during the spring. So there's a lot of good courses also on Coursera. And then we have the Essential AI Handbook for Leaders, this one. A physical one. I'll try to get more physical copies if you want, but it's from Peltarion, and they've made some interviews, and really a really good handbook. I'll send that to everyone in PDF format. So what is AI and why are you interested? I think that's the main reason you are here. And what we're going to do now is we want your input. So you can go into mentimeter.com, because interaction is important for us. And hopefully, we will have a word cloud covering the screen. And now you might not see that from, do you see it online as well?
Yes,
Do a thumbs up.
Yeah. We do.
Perfect. So what is AI for you? And go to menti.com, use the code 7329904. And we'll see if it's data. The future. Magic. Hopefully we will make somewhat of that magic disappear and make it more tangible. I'm going to save this as well later on. Utopia and dystopia, that's something I really like. The two-edged sword of innovation. New insights, learning, prediction. A black hole? Maybe for capital by the bigger corporates, because they really need to learn how to invest in AI. And we will go into that as well, the terminology and all of the questions. So if you have questions regarding the terminology, for example, what is an AI winter? Why are we talking about winters when we're talking AI sometimes? Please ask those questions. But I think we have a pretty good picture here of it. And what we will use this picture for is to compare this one to when you answer during the last session. If we made some clearance or if we made the concept of AI more clear, because black box, yeah, that's pretty good though. But hopefully it won't be magic anymore, and it won't be a black hole. We might need some explanation to why it's smart, why we talk about biases, about the opportunities. I think you basically covered everything here. This is good. Save that. And I'll send that to you as well. So let's change back to the presentation if we can. No.
Maybe it's there, but I can't see it. But it's statistical inference, aka mathematics.
Let's see. You can see here. There. There we go. So what is AI? AI is a lot of things. And what we need to start talking when we talk about AI, because that's really something that's being overseen when we dive into the field of technology. We're so excited. We really want to do things with innovation. And we don't really think about why. So why do we need it? Why should we scale AI? How can AI help us? And this is also a quote from this book, but this is actually an old quote from Wallenberg, not during this era, but during the old era when they started investing in airplanes instead of trains. So every positive leap for mankind has been fueled by intelligence. And sometimes when we talk about artificial intelligence, we put more of an emphasis, or we emphasize artificial more than we emphasize intelligence. And that is really something that we need to think about when we go into this field. But I'm out missioning about AI a lot, both for corporate management and strategic groups, but also for kids that goes through the gymnasium or high school. And then I always have one question: what is intelligence? Do we have a definition about that on intelligence in the room? What is intelligence?
Possibility to learn.
Great answer.
Can you repeat the answer, Peter, so that we online here?
A possibility to learn. Adapt to changes.
Self-determination.
Self-determination.
I believe processing information fast processing of information.
Yes, fast processing of information. Which is what is really interesting is that dependent on the group you ask.
Can we bring up some more answers from online?
Yeah, of course.
So we have capacity to adapt, deeper understanding, the combination of wisdom and intellect, pattern recognition, ability to solve problems, creativity. I would also say consciousness, process, discover, and invent, making the right decisions, a lot of things.
Consciousness is going to be, we're going to talk about that later on in sessions. Coming from somewhat from a philosophy background, consciousness is really, really, really interesting in the field of AI. So super good, really good answers. And what's interesting with the answers, it's often that they come from, if you're talking about artificial intelligence, you kind of answer with a terminology that comes from artificial intelligence, which is such an interesting fact about intelligence, that is that we don't really have a good answer on what intelligence really is. Still, we're trying to create it. So when in doubt, turn to Google, and after seeing The Social Dilemma, I'm not really sure about doing that anymore. But intelligence, and you all, you mentioned, a lot of you guys mentioned that also, both in the room but in the chat, like the ability to acquire and apply knowledge and skills. So both acquiring the skills, learning, but then applying them on something. So solving real challenges. And one thing we're doing with AI, if we're looking at, if we look at the classical, is it a chihuahua or a muffin thing? That's not really solving anything, but we need to learn. So that's why we're using those types of childish games, or we're trying to use games within, or not we, but DeepMind is trying to use games to learn. But the interesting things happens when we apply those skills. The interesting thing happens when we know what we know and then apply it on solving real cases. So I really want to emphasize intelligence when going through this course, thinking about, okay, this is not only a solution if we're going to go into the cases later on, but okay, what did that do for me? How was that intelligent? What type of problem did it solve? How did it do the product better than it was before, for example? So the question for the first chapter, I hope everyone will go into, how should we define AI? So if we have a common understanding on intelligence, what is then created intelligence? How do we do that? So the classical question in this chapter, and one of our roles working with AI Sweden is to demystify the area of AI. So will AI take your job? Maybe, but hopefully it will make you better. Hopefully, if you have a job today that you're doing in a pace, or you have a type of productivity, or you're disaffective, hopefully you either will be more productive and more effective at your job with AI, or you will get more free time to do other things. Maybe spend more time with your friends, spend more time with your family, or create more value for the organization you're in.
Can I ask you?
Yeah.
Then there is a limit between automation and AI as well.
Yes. Yeah. The question was the difference between automation and AI. And that is really, AI is a very broad area, a broad field, and sometimes automation, RPAs or robotic process automation, falls into that field. Exactly, because AI is a hype field, and people really want to use hype fields to both have bigger, higher, or business value. You want to have a higher valued startup, or you have to say that you have AI today because it's such a hype. And we will go into that. But the main thing is that we also want to emphasize that AI isn't a new thing. AI was from the beginning a really bad definition of what it does. But if we ask researchers and historians, it kind of started here. Has anyone read this paper? Online? The Computing Machinery and Intelligence, written by Alan Turing in the 1950s. And this is not maybe the first time we've put together the question, can machines think? But it's really the first time that someone made a real effort in looking into that from an academical or industrial view. Can machines think? That's where the field of AI started. And that's really also, I think a lot of you have seen the movie, The Imitation Game. But that's where his thoughts started, Turing's thoughts. And The Imitation Game is also known as the classical Turing tests. Can a real person mix up not an AI, Sofie, but the model of an AI or a robot as intelligent? And if I perceive it as intelligent, is it really intelligent? or is it just pretending to be intelligent? Because that is also philosophical questions we have to ask ourselves. For example, robotics or automation processes can seem intelligent, but they can't do anything else, and they don't really get better. So we need to think about, okay, what is intelligent? What is smart? How do we define that in the context we're in? And I don't have the answer for you. This is a research that has been going on for 50 years. But the real field of AI was when AI became the term for the entire field, is with this very diversified group. Dartmouth, the very diversified, and that's why you're here. That's really why you're here. But the coin, the definition or the expression of AI was defined by John McCarthy, who kind of ensembled or brought together this conference on AI at 1956 during two months during the summer. He said, like, okay, I'm going to talk with my colleagues and within the academic field, and we will solve a lot of challenges this summer. We will solve language understanding, natural language processing. We will solve machine learning. We will dive into deep learning for 2 months. And the interesting thing is that still they couldn't have, they already, when they did the founding fathers of AI and the AI conference at Dartmouth College, they said that AI is such a bad terminology. It's such a bad definition on what we are going to do, but they didn't have anything better. And that stuck with us. So the term AI and the field of AI comes from this conference during 2 months when they were going to solve things that we still haven't solved. They were going to solve how computers understand language. They were going to solve how a computer can help and fill up a coffee cup, for example. And there's some really brilliant minds here, both McCarthy and Minsky, and you, and you probably heard about a lot of those. But we need to diversify this field, and that's why we need to accelerate both in education and research as well. But really defining the field of AI is hard, but what we're talking about is a field of technology, a part of computer science, where we have a bunch of different technologies that we use to try to mimic human intelligent behavior or human behavior to solve challenges. Some try to imitate other type of animals to solve things. We use robotics in self-driving cars. We use neural networks to win over the champion in Go or chess. We use chatbots in the field of medical right now and doing triages solutions. We use almost then RPAs, for example, is not in this part, but some RPAs use artificial intelligence and some techniques from the field. So it's a very broad field, and it feels like there's new technologies and new models each and every week now, which is fantastic. But it's really a mesh of technologies, and that's why it's turned out to such a hype area. There was a report published last year about European AI startups, for example, and they said when we looked into it, it was only 40% of those AI startups that had somewhat a pinch of AI or used AI technologies in some way. So, and coming from I was in Silicon Valley just before Corona, meeting a lot of startups within the field of health and autonomous vehicles, and some uses all like MySQL databases, and they do some data crunching and say that is AI because they know they need to use the word of AI to get a higher valuation. So that's why we need to educate people about AI and about what is machine learning, what is an intelligent agent, what do we mean by narrow AI or weak AI, and how do we do reinforcement learning. But as of now, and I think this picture is from, I borrowed it from one of our partners they're talking about, they're doing a lot of work within data and how we use data. But this is actually all we can do within the field of AI right now. What we can use AI for today, the narrow AI, we can predict things based on the data we do have. We can recognize things. We can do face recognition, for example. We can personalize things based on your behavior when you use certain types of services. And we can uncover structures or find patterns in big data lakes or big data streams. So this is all of the things we can do right now. There's a bunch of exploratory techniques. We have made huge progress in natural language processing now with GPT-3 from Google. So we will see a lot of progress, but these are the things that I want you to think about. So based on the data you do have in your everyday life, when are your pattern or your data being used to predict what you should do or what you might be interested in? When does the Face ID or any other services recognize you? How do social services or streaming services personalize the feed you get? And when are your data or the data you look at being used to uncover structure or find patterns? So we're going to start here. What and when are you using AI in your everyday life? We're going to jump into the groups again to have a discussion. We will use now about, let's say, 7 minutes and go through, everyone in the group can go through like 1 minute each about when you're using AI. And I will send you online into the same breakout rooms again. So see you in 7 minutes. We're closing the rooms, the breakout rooms in 12 seconds.
Or hello, I meant.
Welcome back. No, not even. Really, really dark now. So when are you using when are you using AI in your everyday life? We're going to start online with a couple of few mentions.
Do you wanna call out other people, or like feel free to speak up from other groups, because I'm only partaking in one group.
I would like room number 2 with Caroline Vittasp. I'm so into someone.
Hi.
Caroline, sorry.
Hi. No problem. So not sure if you can see me as well, but we talked a bit about, the obvious ones on your phone, the apps, etc., but also maybe the not so obvious ones, like in your car and surveillance. But they are very prevalent in a lot of different ones. I think, Nina, you also mentioned Siri. I don't use that one so much myself, but yeah.
I would like to go with room number 4 and Sofia Båge, if you're there.
She needs to be muted, so I can answer if that's okay. Yeah. So in my team, we actually have some practitioners already using AI in their everyday work. So it was really, really interesting to listen into all the things that are how AI is being used in sports situation, road, some using road data and so on. So it was really, really interesting. And of course, all the obvious things as well, like Netflix and Facebook and all the ads that we are bombarded with. So that's a little bit from our group.
Yeah. And how about here in the room? Do we have someone that wants to mention something else than Facebook and cars? Because we're going to go into those two exactly. It's like you've read the course.
I add one more thing, unless someone in the room had something. But another thing that we brought up in our group is the use of maps and prediction, and like the shortest or longest routes to get there, and how the traffic is going to be. Another one is Gmail presenting suggestions of what my emails are going to look like. And I'm like, do you want to meet? And it presents this afternoon. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah. Someone keeping an eye on you. That's perfect. Ivan?
We talked about the insurance industry, that there is a huge potential for customer service and claims as well.
Yeah.
Automating claims handling.
Yeah. So automating the insurance industry.
Yeah.
Seems like looks like you're gonna start a new insurance company and just push through.
Yeah. Face recognition as well as the airport security scans.
Yeah. Yeah. We're actually going to go into a case from Shenzhen into that, which is somewhat scary, somewhat interesting. Or the future. We'll see. But looking at those, you mentioned, these are examples from the course. So what elements of AI is doing, or the course is doing, is that and this is my suggestions, but to be transparent here, that's one of the things. And you can see that I'm from Gothenburg, because Håkan is there. The thing we want to go through here is that during the course they talk about applied, where it's being applied, but also how they're doing it. And when it comes to content recommendation, we talk a lot about data, user behavior data. They are so good at looking at your data and predicting, or trying to predict what you might like. which is interesting. And what I really think, what I was so surprised about when that came out is the Netflix recommendation system, where they flip or change covers. So they flip and change the color of the covers, which kind of fascinated me, because I couldn't, it's like 1 year ago, 2 years ago, I couldn't find the movies I was looking for on my friend's Netflix, because I was so used to see that the theory of everything was looking in a certain way. And that is really something, I think.
Why did they do that?
Because you have a preference, you have a preference for different types of colors, and you seem to be navigating towards certain types of colors, or if you compare your Netflix feed to a friend, for example, look at the Netflix feed, if they have a lot of colors, or like the Netflix original covers, or if they have the old original ones or the classical ones with more people on it, because that is really based on what you look at and what you seem to be choosing.
So we are going to really have like parallel realities. We already have it, because that's an example of it.
Super filter bubbles.
Yeah, exactly.
One good thing, or one thing that's going to be interesting, and I would like you to kind of think about that. Because, for example, if you look at the Social Dilemma now, or Tiger King is probably an even better example, that blew up enormously. It started being super hype. And think about it, okay, was that a choice by our culture? Was that we as humans who chose that Tiger King should be a super hype because it was so interesting? Or was it the service that was so good at like pointing out who's a influencer, who influences your friends on what you look at, who made that decision? Was it you guys, or was it the service, or was it a mix? Hopefully a mix. And then also driverless cars. And I want to show, I hope this goes with the sound right now, because this is a example from Waymo. Coming from Gothenburg, of course, we have Volvo Cars, Geely, and Sinuity, but I was choosing a thing here from Waymo, because I think that this is really where we stand right now in with artificial intelligence, because we have not adjusted the services maybe on the hard applications like cars. They are still being used as it would be human drivers there, but the fascination of the human driver not being there is amazing.
Yeah, that's really, really weird, seeing this kind of the steering wheel kind of move on its own like that. I like the notice on the steering wheel too, says, "Do not touch steering wheel or pedals, the vehicle will pull over," as sort of a warning to anyone that might try to mess with the driverless car. It looks like we're going to be taking a right-hand turn here on Henkel, which looks like it's going to be into some bit of a residential area. So away from sort of the more heavily trafficked commercial zone that we are in.
So looking at the course, one thing I would like you to think about when looking at the course is all of the technologies that have to be used to get this, applying this solution or get this to work. You have a question? No, you have sensors that needs to kind of read in the environment it is in, and it's even spinning sensors or motion tracking, or it's basically vision. Some uses vision, but you also have to have sensors that feels what is happening in the car, and still you have old policy or old rules that you have to stick to. And I think this is from Austin in Texas or somewhere, where kind of they were really quick at allowing cars to be driverless, so that all of the car manufacturers moved their test vehicles there, because they could basically have driverless cars all over the roads. So when this clip starts, he kind of bumps into another Waymo car without a driver, which is also like, oh no, there's not a driver there. But really think about the technologies being used that are enabling the innovation or technology, because it's not only one, it's within the entire field of AI. And then we come to the interesting, scary, and not scary, you can choose for yourself.
Well, you jaywalked and you had facial recognition.
Craziest thing, I actually got this. Yeah, so also I was jaywalking in Nanshan, and all of a sudden I got a fine to my WeChat. Was it instant? It was about 20 seconds after I guess. I had money in my balance, it just went straight out. And this is just one simple thing. You didn't even just get straight out. Didn't even authorize. And that was incredible. That's crazy.
It's true. Try to jaywalk in certain parts of Shenzhen, and the government's facial recognition will spot you. There's even a board of shame showing the faces of recent offenders.
I'm surprised and very, very worried that they have your face in the facial recognition.
They have everyone's though. I mean, when you get across the border, they take that picture. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's all in the system. They know where you are.
Scary.
This is probably just me, but I find this so, I'm more fascinated than terrified. But this is an interesting, and the same thing goes here. Think about all of the technologies that we have to use to make that happen. You have to have a really good security camera at the gates to country or at the borders. You have to store, you have to identify and store that information somewhere. You have to have that in real time. You have to have that camera look into the same database, identifying out of billions of people that goes into that country. And you have to have that connected to the WeChat account, which has to have money on that. Otherwise, you need an address. So the complexity of that system is so fascinating. And if we can do that to get so that the government can get paid for jaywalking, we can do that with so many things that could be out of use. So we could create value, other types of value with that technology. So I would like you to think about when you go through this course and go through the applications areas, think about, okay, that's one area of application. How could we use this in other ways that will create other types of values? So that's face recognition. And then we have the creative and culture. And this is one of the interesting ones, I think, coming from the creative sector. I guess a lot of you have seen AlphaGo, the movie, how DeepMind beat Lee Sedol on the classic game Go. And the interesting thing that happened during that game is not only that it beat him, they beat the world champion in Go, it's the human commentators that talked about how beautiful moves the solution or the model that made, the AlphaGo made, how creative it was, how it challenged the way we look at Go and how we play Go, based on data, a big model that's been trained on millions of games, but still that model or that solution or that AlphaGo, that being creative and complementing people, complementing human skills within that area. But still, we also have within culture and within the creative arts, we still have a discussion we need to have, like, okay,
in this video,
what is creativity?
We try to use CNN model to transform everyday photography into an artwork.
And here the fascinating thing is that you don't need that much code to do this.
First, we trained Van Gogh's famous work, The Starry Night, and redrawn the Golden Gate Bridge picture with the Van Gogh painting. It took about 3 minutes for the work to come out.
And this is how we humans learn. First we imitate, and then we try to use what we learn during our imitation phase to do original works. We learn. Exactly. No.
We train freedom, self portrait with necklace of thorns and redraw the Hollywood actor Brad Pitt's picture with Frida Kahlo's painting.
You have to see, this is more for a fun part, the fun part.
Likewise, it took about 3 minutes for the work to come out.
It's almost like a Snapchat filter.
In this video.
So the thing regarding this, when we're talking about the creative and culture application of AI, I think we've started this summer, and when we went to Silicon Valley and talked to Stanford earlier this year, one of the most interesting things are generative AI, things that create something. Because if we start creating things within the culture space, we might find other ways of doing things. We might find new types of music, if we're talking about Spotify. And Spotify is already using AI to create playlists, to create music, especially the relaxation musics and stuff like that. But if we can use AI together with humans, hopefully we can even succeed and advance in the culture space, because we can change photography, we can change painting, we can change music, and having composers collaborating with AI, which I think is going to be really fascinating in the coming years. So what is and what is not AI? That is something that I really want you to think about until next time. We talked about automation and robotics and parts of robotics. And it's important to know that and to analyze things with that. For example, this is a famous, Sofie corrected me just before moving into this section about not talking about an AI or one AI, because there are not things that aren't one AI or an AI. It's a model, it's a system, it's part of a system, it's something that performs something. And this is from the future, the magazine The Future, about Google's artificial intelligence build an AI that outperforms any made by humans. So an AI building another AI, which isn't the right thing to do. It's basically models building models, or algorithms building algorithms. So
to comment on this, Peter, since I think what people might get wrong about an AI or the AI is that it's mixed up with a robot or the robot, and those two are different things. So I think commonly when we speak about AI, we speak about an AI technology, or as you said, an AI system or an AI model. So it's a technology that we use. It's not an AI parentheses.
And I want to mention it's now 7:30. So if someone needs to go, you're very free to go. I think we will have about 12 minutes left. Somewhat like that, something like that. But you're very excused if you have to leave. When we're talking about that, we have a couple of problems. And the definition of, so the problems, I want you to be aware of the problems we do have. One problem is what we talked about. We don't really have a definition of AI. So we're not, when we're talking about a field, we don't have a common understanding of what we're talking about, which makes us we have a lot of misunderstandings. We do not really, we might not believe each other if we're talking about, yeah, we use AI a lot at our company, and like, yeah, sure you do. You're using Excel files and data. Yeah. So we don't have a common understanding, which is a major problem. But also, Sofie, what you mentioned earlier, that we have this image of AI being a robot. It's being ex machina, or it's being Arnold Schwarzenegger, or all of these things. So we have a problem with sci-fi, who loves to portray AI as the dystopian tool that's going to destroy end our world and destroy our civilization. So we need to demystify the area, and the only thing to do that is through knowledge and education. But we also have a really interesting thing, and if you listen to the DeepMind podcast, you will learn more about this. But we have a huge problem regarding that. When we started developing the field of AI and a lot of the techniques, we started with expert systems. So we started with things we know how to do, but that are really hard. So for example, games, when we were talking about chess and Go, things we never thought we would solve, we've now solved. So things that are really hard is actually pretty easy to solve. It's not easy, but we can do that. We can solve them. We can strengthen expert systems. We can, if something is rule-based, we can solve that. Yeah. But things that are easy for us, not maybe, I'm not going to do this, but things that are easy, for example, putting up a cup of coffee or even doing coffee, going down on your knees or something like that is really hard. So easy things for human is really, really hard. And that has to do with, we thought about that the computational power that for things that are easy for us would be less demanding for the things that are really hard. But it's actually the other way around, because you need a lot of computational power to like really figure out movement and vision and senses. So this is also a couple of problems we do have right now. But listen to the DeepMind podcast, because they're talking about what DeepMinds are doing and Boston Dynamics are doing within this field, and that is so fascinating. And if we look into the future, I really think that we are close to, not close, but close to solving a couple of problems about the unconscious, because there's really a virtuous cycle between neuropsychology and neural learning and AI. So when we figure out stuff about the brain, then we can also figure out what we can do with AI, and AI can help the neuro researchers find out stuff about the brain as well. And so instead of talking about an AI or one AI or a robot, let's talk about the level of AI, talk about AI-ness, talking about a system being intelligent or a model being less or more intelligent. And so I'll give you all the free card with someone. If someone starts talking about one AI or an AI, please just correct them and say, like, let's talk about AI-ness instead. Let's talk about the level, how intelligent was it, how smart was it? Because then you'll affect and have a good impact on the area. But then also key terminology, general versus narrow AI. General AI is, or AGI is when the AI will take over the world, or no, no, but it's about creating machines that will understand and learn a lot of things instead of only one thing or a few things. And then the same thing goes with narrow AI. That's what we have today. We don't have anything else than narrow AI. And when Elon Musk is talking about the AI destroying the future of humanity, it's the acceleration of AGI he's talking about. So we also need to be aware of that. It's not the Spotify model that produces your Discover Weekly that will destroy the world. That's not dangerous. And the same thing goes with strong and weak AI. That's a philosophical discussion. So this is Jeffrey Hinton and Hasavis, who's at DeepMind, telling everyone that AGI, even though they're working on it, because DeepMind, that's their goal, they're probably the most foremost or the front runner in AGI development, that's their goal of what they want to do. And even though this is an old article, we haven't really had any progress on the field of AGI. So what I would like you to bring with you today, the definition of AI, is that it's a field of data science, and it consists of a lot of different technologies. It consists of machine learning, and in machine learning you have deep learning. So with that knowledge, you will run through the chapter 1 and hopefully also chapter 2 of the course elements of AI. And I really want to ask this question, but we're running out of time. So think about this when you're at home. Think about this when you walk to work in the morning, or having your lunch, or talking with friends. Why is all this happening now? what's the factors that makes this happen now? Why do we have a new AI hype? And why do people talk about an potential AI winter? Because the corporate has started to invest in AI. And I would like you to think away of those three things, but also inside of these three things. So three key factors to why this is happening now. It's the digitalization process we've been through is that we have a lot of data. We've been so good at collecting data, and we will really dive into the data area later on in this course, because to make AI happen, we need data, and we need a lot of it. But we also have the computing power. Moving everything to the cloud, we made computing much more efficient and much more accessible. So we can run the big models. We can train on the data we do have. But there's a couple of challenges or problems with both computing power and big data. And I would like you to read up more about that, because we're definitely gonna, and then algorithms and architecture. A lot of those algorithms that are being used today was developed during the 80s and 90s, but it's first now that we can start using them. I work with a smaller consultancy company down in Göteborg, and they are trying to revolutionize the finance sector with models that were built during the 80s and 90s, because they are so robust, they know they work, and they don't need any more fancy things. What they need is things that work. But this is also an area where you have a lot of development, looking at NLP, looking at deep learning. So we will go more into that together with our researchers and experts. And this is directly taken from the social dilemma. And I like to say that algorithms are opinions. And when we have headlines talking about AI doing this and this and that and that, it's the data that it's trained on. It's humans that are biased. It's not the algorithms. It's not the models. It's really the humans that picked out the data. So think about the meaning, and that's why I like this the picture, because if we have an algorithm or have a model and we're going to build either use deep learning or neural networks or machine learning, we have to have a meaning. And if we are going to accelerate the application of AI, we need to be better at thinking for ourselves, okay, what do I want this to solve? What meaning does this have? What value do I want to create with this? And then we can explore out from that. And really, it's about learning. So we will do this. We will go through that on both the second and on the third session with the fundamentals of machine learning and what deep learning is, how it works. But then we will do it with experts that are actually building the models and not hobbyists like myself. And really take this image and picture with you today, that if you get questions about it, if you start talking about that you are going through an AI crash course right now, talk about the field. Talk about the field of artificial intelligence. And I promised you that we were going to define artificial intelligence today, because that's where we started. I'm not going to have my definition, because that is also really broad, but I kind of borrowed someone from John McCartney from the EU Communication Department that wrote an article so that you see that we still have mixed definition, and that's okay. As long as we are sure that, as long as we make sure that we're talking about the same thing when we're talking about AI models or AI algorithms and machine learning and deep learning. So have the conversation and start thinking about it. So I think that's everything. So during the next session and until the next session, please register for Elements of AI if you haven't gone through it already. I'll make sure to send out this as well. And think about, what could you do with AI? What could you use prediction for, or recognition for, or that you have personalized services, or to uncover structure, maybe in your own behavior. might not have to use AI. And I will send out an interesting thing that was released by the Dutch initiative, and it's How Normal Am I? So you will get a link where they explain about face recognition, they explain about different models they use to identify you as a user, and then you will see how normal you are during a complete session.
Normal.
And I want to finish the after question with one of my favorite futurologists, and for those of you who read sci-fi, you will recognize that. But the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. And that is really something to think about with the case from Shenzhen, or what is happening in the US, is that they have applications areas where they use the solutions for one thing, but we could use them for another thing. We could use them to create value. So we don't have to invent the future, but we can move it here to create something else. And Sofie, I think that's all for me.
Great, thank you so much, Peter. And this has been an incredible session. I hope everyone else thinks so as well, and that you found it useful. I want to let you know that today I'll be here in the digital room, available to answer any questions, like after Mingle, if you want to. And for you in the physical room, I think Peter will be there to answer any questions that you might have. And I will aim to be there physically next time. But if you didn't have the chance to join physically today, you are welcome to do so another time. If you went physically to AI Sweden today, you are welcome to join virtually next time. It's completely up to you. We're going to run this both physically and virtually, all of the meetups. But thank you so much.
Can I have a suggestion?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, yes, because we want to network as well with all these awesome females that are here and online. So can we take 1 minute and add each other at LinkedIn so we can connect? And for the people online, if you want to network, you can post your LinkedIn code so we can add each other and expand. So cute.
Yeah. We actually started doing that in the virtual room already, and one other idea is that this is exactly what Women in AI is for, so please sign up to become a member for Women in AI. We have a Slack channel for Sweden and for other discussion areas within Women in AI, so please feel free to join Women in AI. It's completely free, but just in order to get access to the Slack channel, and we can continue all the discussions there. So I think we should start one for the AI crash course, and we can bring up questions that we have as we go through the course and those kind of things. And I have one final question for you, Peter.
Yes.
Is a recommendation that we should go through chapter 1, 2, or 1, 2, and 3, or 1 and 2 until next time? And is it a criteria, or is it completely up to oneself?
It's completely up to oneself. It's going to be, if you go through the, oh, now you disappeared. If you go to the chapters, you will come more prepared for all of the things we will talk about, but it's not mandatory. You will get to have access to the course anyway. And some of you might already know a lot about AI, so you don't have to use the course, but it's a good way to refresh your knowledge, competence. And I hope that the main thing that we want you is to stay curious. We want to have a lot of questions and a lot of interaction between you guys as well. So it's not mandatory, but we would love to see that, because we also have a challenge towards Finland that we're going to educate more people on the elements of AI. So this is one way for us to spread that word.
Okay, so I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, have you used any AI when you have constructed this course?
Actually, a really good question, and yes. It's not us that has constructed the course, it's University of Helsinki and Reactor, and they used both when they translated things to other languages, they used AI and NLP. They also used it to uncover certain parts of literature that was needed in the course. because so if it's really strange, let's say if the wording is really strange, we will blame the potential models for that.
Okay, so another one.
Yes.
Do they use AI to determine what kind of way people learn things, by pictures, by text, and so on?
Actually, they're not doing that right now. They are looking into start doing that. They're releasing new courses or deep dive courses, like a second course or the B course.
Can I comment on that, Peter, just related, since I work a lot with AI and learning. So the company I work for, Sana Labs, we work a lot with exactly this, AI in learning and AI for learning, to personalize learning. And what you're describing, Heidi, as in like, how do we learn best? Everything that we do at Sana Labs is based on learning science, and there is actually very little evidence right now in this area of how one learns. So I think it's an explorative field, and it's it's a subject that many people are looking into, but it's not yet based on science, and therefore it's quite difficult to put into practice if you want to be based on science.
And instead of standing here and kill Lisa, I might just give the word to Sofie and Raquel, who's the experts on learning. Any more questions from the room or online? No? Then thank the room. Thank you so much for today. Thank you for sticking with us and spending your free time here. And to you guys online, thank you so much for participating and taking time from your families and everything. Next time is in 2 weeks already. And we will do the same thing, mixed format, both here and online. And then you also will meet some experts in the field of machine learning. So I'm looking forward to that. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Goodbye and thank you.
Maybe, Peter, if you can go on mute.
Thank you.
Jättebra. Ja, exakt. Och kanske ska
Ja, Peter, kan du muta rummet? Tack, så kan vi stanna här och snacka om vi vill.
Jättebra.
Exactly, that's what I wanted to tell. Okay, cool. Can you include the trainers to the mailing list?
Yes.
So we get the information as well.
But I don't even think if I'm not sure I'm on the trainers list.
Yeah, no, I didn't get the any emails either before. Either. So yeah, but
so it could be good to.
There we go. Okay, so if anyone just wants to stay and ask questions or anything, I'm here if you guys want to chat. Since now we can't hear the big room.
I actually had a quick question. I registered for the Women in AI website, but when I tried to connect on Slack, it tells me that I cannot connect using a Gmail account. It actually has a limited amount of email domains that we can use. So I was wondering if there is some kind of restriction or...
Okay, I will look into that straight away. I don't have an answer, but I'll get back to you.
I got actually the same message when I tried.
Okay. Does anyone know if it's a limitation to the free version of Slack, in case there's a limitation to the number of emails?
I'm not sure. It didn't seem to be the limitation of number of emails. It seemed to be more a limitation to the domains that we were allowed to use. Okay,
because I know that this can be a limitation sometimes when you're signing up for things, that you can't use a Gmail address. Is that the message that it's giving you as well?
Let me quickly check again, because
otherwise, if you have a work email, maybe you could, if you have another email, if you could try use that and see if that solves the problem. I mean, it's not ideal, but I guess it's what we would have to work with from now. But I'll look into it and see if it's something on Women AI side or if it's just in the feature of Slack.
Okay, I'll send you exactly the email domains that I'm getting so I don't spam everyone else. But
Will be there any kind of examination or certification at the end? Or is more like you learn how much you want?
So as you go through the course, you get a certification when you have completed the course, and you can also get the university credits for this once it's completed. So that's through the Elements of AI website, basically, that you get the course certificate. So you don't get anything from Women in AI or AI Sweden, but maybe it's something that we should think about if it's something that you guys want.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Hi, Sophie. It's Caroline.
Hello.
Hi. Just a question about, so when I go into the Elements of AI website, it basically gives me like a part 1 introduction and a part 2 building AI. And I'm guessing it's the number 2. That the introduction
Sorry, what did it say? It said number 1.
So it's basically part 1 is like an introduction, a free online course, it says, and then it's the part 2 coming in 2020, building AI.
So that's the second course that they're releasing. So the first one that we're going to take.
Okay, good.
The second, so it's basically so it's University of Helsinki and Reactor, and they're creating basically a follow-up course to Elements of AI. So maybe it's going to be under the domain Elements of AI as well, but it's the first one that we're taking now, and the second one I think is a more deep dive into like machine learning and things.
Okay, great, thanks.
Any other questions from anyone in the virtual room?
Do you have any other activities as a woman in AI in Sweden?
Yes, we do. So as I mentioned early on, I only joined early March, and typically Women in AI, we do a lot of research projects. We do collaboration and partnerships with both companies and institutions, but most of all, we do meetups. Meetups where we invite experts and people who are working in the field, and sessions to be able to collaborate and just network with each other, meet other people. And we had quite a few like last year and the beginning of this year, but then when I joined, I haven't been able to host anything since the pandemic hit mid-March. So I think the last event that we had was early March or something, and now this is the first one that we're hosting anything partly physically. But that's typically what we do. So there are loads of things. And if you want to get involved in Women in AI to, I don't know, host a master class, or just bring something to your company, or participate in the community, you're more than welcome to do so. So it's completely non-for-profit and community-driven organization. So everyone who's doing anything is just doing it in their free time and because they're passionate about it. Does it answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys. I'm super happy that so many of you wanted to join, and we've had really good discussions today.
Agreed. Take care. See you next time.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Tja, Peter, hör du mig?
Jag hör dig.
Ja, hallå. Jag tänker, nu är det bara jag kvar här i det digitala rummet. Jag loggar ut och så rings vi sen. För jag antar att ni klarar er där borta på kontoret.
Det gör vi. Då gör vi så. Jag ringer dig sen.
Ja, grymt. Hej!
Hej. Ska vi kanske stoppa recordingen också?